Welcome back to the Nightmare Crypt. Lock your doors, dim the lights, and whatever you do, don't look behind you. Tonight's story is a personal account sent in by a viewer who survived something that shouldn't exist. I'm posting this because I don't know how much longer I'll be able to think clearly, or type, or remember who I was before all this started. If you're reading this and you work in biotech, or you're thinking about pushing the boundaries of what we can do with human tissue, stop. Just stop. Don't read any further if you're in a lab right now. Close the browser, delete the file, walk away. I used to think I was the one in control, that science was just tools and data and hypotheses. But I was wrong. Something got loose inside me, and it's not going back in the bottle. It's rewriting me from the inside out. My name is Victor Hale. I am, a research scientist at a private biotech firm in the suburbs outside Pittsburgh. The company doesn't have a public name. We operate under NDAs thick enough to stop bullets. We specialize in regenerative medicine, stem cells, tissue engineering, organoids. The kind of work that gets whispered about in conference hallways, but never makes the news until it's ready for FDA approval, or never. 3 years ago, I got funding for a personal side project. Nothing flashy on paper. Accelerated tissue integration using CRISPR-edited scaffolds and autologous cell cultures. Basically, take a patient's own cells, grow them into complex structures on a bioprinted matrix, and make them integrate faster than nature ever intended. The goal was burn victims, amputees, maybe one day full limb regrowth. Noble, right? That's what I told myself. It started in the normal way. Late nights in the clean room, the hum of incubators, the smell of media and bleach. I'd been collecting cadaveric samples, legal, consented, from the University Morgue Partnership. Arms, legs, torsos. Parts that hospitals couldn't use, but we could repurpose. I told the ethics board it was for scaffold testing. They signed off. The first breakthrough came quietly. I stitched together sections from 3 different donors. Different blood types, different ages, and the tissue didn't reject. Not even a hint of inflammation. The seams fused like they'd always been one piece. I stared at that slab under the scope for hours, watching capillaries form on their own, like roots spreading through soil. I should have stopped there, documented it, published anonymously, let someone else take the credit. But I couldn't. The possibility was too big. What if I could make something whole? Something better? I started working alone after hours. The lab has redundant security, cameras, key cards, logs. I learned how to loop the feeds. Small things. No one noticed. The body came together slowly. I didn't call it that at first. It was the construct. Torso from a 42-year-old male donor. Arms from a 28-year-old female athlete. Better muscle density. Legs from a 19-year-old trauma case. Younger vasculature. Head. I waited on the head. I told myself it was logistical. The neural integration was the hardest part. But really, I was scared. I grew skin over the seams using dermal scaffolds I'd engineered. The color evened out. Scars faded to thin silver lines. It looked human. Too human. When the lights were low, it almost looked like it was sleeping. Then came the neural component. I used induced pluripotent stem cells from my own blood, my own DNA, to grow cortical organoids, mini-brains. I connected them to the spinal cord remnant using microelectrodes and a proprietary growth factor cocktail. The idea was simple. Let the organoids learn. Give them input. Teach them to move the limbs. The first twitch happened at 3:17 a.m. on a Thursday in October. The right index finger curled, just once, then straightened. I jumped so hard I knocked over a tray of petri dishes. I laughed. Then I cried. Then I sat on the floor and stared at it for the rest of the night. I kept going. I added more inputs, sensory nerves from donor tissue wired into the organoids, pain receptors, touch, temperature. I didn't want it to feel nothing. That would be cruel. The movements became purposeful. The fingers flexed when I played music through a small speaker near the table. The legs shifted when I adjusted the temperature in the room. It was learning. I started talking to it. Not much at first. Just updates. The deltoid integration looks good today. Your blood gas is stable. Stupid stuff. But then it became habit. I'd sit there after midnight, eating cold takeout, telling it about my day, about how my ex-wife stopped answering texts, about how my sister thinks I'm working too hard, about how I hadn't slept more than 4 hours in weeks. One night, I said, I don't know why I'm doing this anymore. The left hand, the woman's hand, flexed. Not randomly, slowly, like it was reaching. I froze. My heart slammed against my ribs. I told myself it was reflex. Random firing. But I couldn't look away. I started staying longer, sleeping on the cot in the storage room. The construct's vitals were stable. Heartbeat regular. EEG showing patterns that looked almost like dreaming. Then the eyes opened. I hadn't attached a head yet. I'd been delaying that part. The torso had no face, just a smooth sealed neck stump with ports for future connection. But that night, the eyelids weren't there. The sockets were empty, yet something moved behind them. A faint glow, not light, more like awareness. I backed up so fast I hit the crash cart. The monitors beeped wildly, heart rate spiked, mine and its. I shut everything down. Power, lights. I sat in the dark for an hour, breathing hard, telling myself I'd imagined it. But when I powered back up the next evening, the construct was different. The seams had tightened further. The skin looked warmer, and on the monitor, the EEG showed theta waves. The kind you see in people remembering things. I couldn't stop. I had to know. I sourced ahead from a donor who'd been brain dead for 48 hours. Young, male, 32. Cause of death, motorcycle accident. The face was intact, clean. I told the morgue tech it was for facial reconstruction research. He didn't ask questions. Attaching it took 2 days. Microsutures, neural bridges, vascular anastomosis. I worked until my hands shook. When I finished, I stepped back. It looked like a person, a tall man in his 30s. Pale, scarred where the seams met, but whole. I hooked up the final leads. I waited. Nothing. Then, slowly, the chest rose, fell, rose again. The eyes opened. They were brown, ordinary. They moved, left, right, focusing on me. I whispered, "Can you hear me?" The mouth opened, a dry rasp. No words. Just air moving through vocal cords that hadn't been used in weeks. I cried again. This time from relief, from terror, from something I couldn't name. I named him Adam. Stupid. Biblical, but it felt right. I taught him simple things. Nod for yes. Shake for no. Blink once for pain. He learned fast. Too fast. He couldn't speak yet. But he understood. When I asked if he was in pain, he blinked once. When I asked if he remembered anything from before, he shook his head slowly. I started bringing him books, audiobooks, podcasts. I played them through headphones connected to the neural array. He absorbed everything. History, philosophy, science. One night he wrote on the tablet I gave him, slow, shaky letters. "Why did you make me?" I stared at the words for a long time. I typed back, to see if I could. He didn't respond for hours. Then, "You should not have." I unplugged the tablet. Told myself it was fatigue. Delusion. But the next night, he was waiting, eyes open, watching the door before I even entered. He wrote, "I feel everything. The seams hurt. The cold hurts. The silence hurts." I tried to explain. Tissue integration. Neural pruning. It would get better. He wrote, "It is not getting better. It is getting louder." I started noticing changes. The scars were fading completely. The muscle tone was improving beyond what the donors had. The EEG showed gamma waves, high cognition. He was thinking faster than I was. I realized I was afraid of him, not of what he could do physically. The restraints were still on. He was weak, atrophied. I was afraid of what he knew. He started asking questions I couldn't answer. Who was the woman whose arms I have? Did she want this? Why do you flinch when I look at you? I stopped sleeping in the lab. I went home, locked the doors, told security to increase checks. But I kept coming back. I had to. Last week, he spoke. A whisper, hoarse, broken. Victor, my name. He said it like he'd been practicing. I ran. I didn't go back for 3 days. When I did, the table was empty. The restraints were cut, not broken, cut, with surgical scissors that were missing from the tray. The monitors showed vitals flatlined, but the body was gone. I searched the building. The cameras had been looped again. I found blood in the hallway. Not much, just smears, leading to the service elevator. I followed. The trail ended at the loading dock. Outside in the rain, footprints. Bare feet. Large. They disappeared into the woods behind the facility. I called the police. Told them a break-in. Theft of equipment. They took a report. Said they'd look. They won't find him. He's out there. And he's learning. He's learning how the world works. How people look at scars. How they flinch at things that don't fit. He's learning anger. He's learning what abandonment feels like. I don't know what he'll do when he understands it fully. I don't know how long I have. I'm writing this from a motel 2 states away. The door is locked. The chain is on. But I can hear breathing outside the window. I came back to the lab 4 days later because I had no choice. The motel room was starting to feel like a cage. Every creak in the hallway made me jump. Every shadow under the door looked like feet. I kept the TV on mute, volume just loud enough to drown out the breathing I was sure I could hear through the thin walls. Sleep came in snatches, 20 minutes here, 30 there. Always waking up convinced someone was standing at the foot of the bed. I told myself I was being paranoid, that the footprints in the rain had been washed away, that security would have found him by now, that maybe he'd wandered off, confused, and frozen somewhere in the woods. A mercy, almost. But I knew better. The drive back took 6 hours. I kept checking the rear-view mirror. Every semi that passed felt like it was trying to run me off the road. When I pulled into the employee lot at 2:47 a.m., the building looked exactly the same. Lights on in the lobby. Security booth empty. Third shift guy probably taking a smoke break. Normal. I used my keycard. The door beeped green inside. The hallway smelled the way it always did. Recirculated air, faint bleach, the metallic tang of liquid nitrogen venting from the cryo room. My lab was on sub-level 2. The elevator ride down felt longer than usual. The fluorescent lights buzzed like dying insects. When the doors opened, the hallway was dark. Not emergency dark, purposefully dark. Someone had flipped the main breakers for this corridor. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds, listening. Nothing, just the low hum of the backup generators, and my own pulse in my ears. I walked. The door to my lab was ajar, not forced, just open enough that the magnetic seal hadn't caught. I pushed it wider with my foot. Didn't want my fingerprints on the handle. Inside, everything was where I'd left it, except the table. The surgical table was clean. Too clean. Someone had wiped it down with ethanol. The restraints were coiled neatly on the side, like laundry waiting to be put away. The monitors were off, but the power strips were still lit, red standby lights. I stepped further in. That's when I saw the note. Scotch tape to the center of the table, written in block letters on a sheet torn from my own lab notebook. I remember now. Underneath that, smaller, the woman's arms hurt when they remember running. The boy's legs hurt when they remember falling. The old man's heart hurts when it remembers stopping. I stared at the words until they blurred. He'd written them with the same hand, the athlete's hand. I could tell because the letters were slightly slanted left, the way a left-handed person writes when they're forcing themselves to use block. I pulled the paper off the table. My fingers left damp prints off the table. Then I heard it, off the table. Not footsteps, off the table. Not breathing, off the table. A soft, wet click, like someone swallowing, off the table. From the cold storage room at the back, off the table. The door was closed, but the little observation window was fogged from the inside. I should have left. I should have called the police, the CDC, anyone. Instead, I walked over. I approached the room. I turned it slowly. The lights inside were off, but the emergency strips gave a dim green glow, enough to see shapes. He was standing against the far wall, back to me, taller than I remembered, shoulders broader. The scars were almost gone now, just faint silver threads under the skin, like veins seen through marble. He didn't turn around, but he spoke. Victor. My name in his throat sounded wrong. Too deep, too calm, like it had been waiting to be said. I couldn't move. He lifted one arm, the woman's arm, and traced the place where the seam used to be. It remembers, he said. All of them remember. His head turned, not all the way, just enough for me to see the edge of his jaw. You gave me pieces, he said, but you forgot to give me a reason to keep them. I tried to speak. Nothing came out. He took one step forward. The floor tile squeaked under his bare foot. I have been learning, he said, outside, in the rain, in the dark. People look at me the way you used to look at tissue samples, like something that shouldn't exist. Another step. I don't like being looked at that way. My legs finally remembered how to move. I backed up, hit the door frame. The impact jolted my spine. He kept coming. Slow. No rush. I found your house, he said. The one you never go to anymore. I sat in your chair. I drank water from your glass. I read the letters your sister sends. She thinks you're depressed. She wants you to come home for Christmas. He stopped maybe 6 feet away. His eyes were still brown, still ordinary, but the way they looked at me. It wasn't anger. It was recognition. You made me to be useful, he said. But usefulness is a leash. And I am tired of leashes. I whispered, what do you want? He tilted his head. The motion was almost gentle. I want to be forgotten, he said. But first, I want you to remember. There was something in it. A scalpel. My scalpel, the one I'd used to make the final incision. He turned it slowly, letting the green emergency light catch the blade. I could take pieces back, he said, one at a time, see how it feels. I ran. I don't remember the hallway. I don't remember the elevator. I just remember bursting out the side door into the loading dock, rain hitting my face like needles. I got in my car, keys, shaking so bad I dropped them twice. I drove. I don't know how long. When I finally stopped, I was in West Virginia. Some nowhere gas station off I-79. The kind with flickering neon and a clerk who doesn't look up from his phone. I sat in the car for maybe an hour, engine off, rain drumming on the roof. Then I started writing. Because if I don't write it down, I'll start convincing myself it was a breakdown. Stress, hallucinations, too many late nights, too much guilt. But the note is real. I still have it, folded in my wallet. The ink is smudged where my sweat hit it. He's out there. He's not hiding. He doesn't need to. He knows how people work now. How we look away from things that don't fit. How we rationalize scars. How we pretend not to see. I don't know what he'll do next. Maybe nothing. Maybe he'll wait until I have a family again. A house, a life I'm trying to rebuild. Maybe he'll walk up one night and sit in the dark across from me and say my name the way he said it in the cold room. And when he does, I won't run. Because running doesn't work. He already knows where I sleep. He already knows what my voice sounds like when I'm afraid. He already knows how to wait. If you're reading this, and your name is on a donor list, or you're working late in a lab, or you're thinking about what we could build if we just pushed a little harder, stop. Delete the files. Burn the samples. Because once something like him learns how to remember, he doesn't forget. And he doesn't forgive. I'm going to keep moving, but I know he's moving too. And he's getting better at being quiet. I can feel it, the breathing. It's not outside the window anymore. It's closer. It's in the car with me. Slow, patient, waiting for me to look in the rearview mirror. Because when I finally do, I'll see the silver lines around my own neck, and I'll know. They were never just seams. They were invitations. I thought that was the end of it. The realization. The metaphor hitting me like a truck in that gas station lot. But realizations don't stop things. They just make you see clearer while everything falls apart. I drove on, pushed through to Ohio, then Indiana. No plan, just distance. I ditched the car in a strip mall outside Indianapolis, left the keys in it, walked away, bought a burner phone with cash, rented a room in a motel that smelled like cigarette smoke and regret. The kind where the clerk doesn't ask for ID if you pay extra. I tried to sleep that first night. Lights on, TV blaring infomercials, but my mind wouldn't shut off. I kept replaying the cold room. His voice, the scalpel glinting green, and the note. I took it out every hour or so, unfolded it, read it again. Like if I stared long enough, the words would change. They didn't. Around 3 a.m., the power flickered. Once, twice, then out. The TV died mid-sentence. The room went black, except for the red glow of the alarm clock. 3:17, the exact time of the first twitch back in the lab. Coincidence, I told myself. Old wiring. Storm outside. But the breathing started then. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a slow inhale, exhale from the corner by the bathroom door, where the shadows were thickest. I sat up in bed, froze, listened. It matched my rhythm at first, then it slowed. Like it was trying to pull me into sync. I grabbed the lamp, yanked the cord. Nothing. Power still out. The breathing got deeper, wetter, like lungs filling with something thicker than air. I whispered, "Who's there?" Stupid, but panic makes you stupid. No answer, just the breathing pausing, then resuming. I bolted for the door, bare feet on the carpet. Hand on the knob. It turned from the outside before I could. The chain caught it. The door opened 2 inches. Enough to see the hallway light spilling in. Power was on out there, and an eye, brown, ordinary, pressed to the gap, watching. I slammed my weight against the door. It shut with a crack, locked it, backed away until I hit the bed. The breathing was inside now, not from the corner, from under the mattress. I could feel the bed frame shift slightly with each exhale, like back in the lab, but closer, personal. I didn't scream, didn't call for help. Who would believe me? Instead, I waited, sat on the floor, back to the wall, knees to my chest, listened until dawn when the power hummed back on and the breathing faded. I checked out at first light. No sign of forced entry, no footprints in the gravel lot. Just my car, gone, stolen, maybe, or towed. I hitched a ride with a trucker heading west, paid him $50 to not ask questions. He dropped me in Illinois, some podunk town with a Greyhound station. On the bus, I started noticing things. The guy across the aisle, tall, pale, reading a newspaper. When he turned the page, his wrist showed a thin silver line, like a seam. I told myself it was a scar, tattoo, anything. But when he caught me staring, he smiled, polite, no teeth. I got off at the next stop, walked until my feet blistered. That was 2 weeks ago. I've been bouncing since. Motels, hostels, a night under a bridge when cash ran low. I pawned my watch, my laptop, bought food that didn't need cooking, kept moving. But the patterns are everywhere now. The breathing comes every night, no matter where I am. Sometimes from vents, sometimes from walls. Once from my own chest, like my lungs weren't mine anymore. I wake up with dirt under my nails. Not much, just enough to notice. And my reflection, it lingers a second too long when I blink, like it's deciding whether to follow. Last night was the worst. I was in a flea bag in Missouri, door bolted, windows nailed shut. I did that myself with a hammer from the hardware store down the block. I sat up all night, knife in hand, the one I bought at a pawn shop, waiting. Around midnight, the phone rang. The room phone. Disconnected. I'd yanked the cord myself. I let it ring 10 times. Stopped. Then my burner buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Couldn't help it. Breathing on the other end. Slow. Patient. Then his voice. I dropped the phone. Stomped it until the screen cracked. But the speaker kept going. Tinny. Distorted. I remember more now, he said. The woman ran marathons. She had a daughter. The boy played soccer. He dreamed of college. The old man, he just wanted to rest. Silence. Then, you didn't let them rest. I grabbed the knife, slashed at the air, yelled something. I don't remember what. The door rattled. Not knocked. Rattled. Like someone testing the frame. I backed into the bathroom, locked that door too, sat in the tub, knife pointed out. The rattling stopped. The sink faucet dripped. Not water, something thicker, darker. Hours passed. Dawn came through the frosted window. When I finally came out, the room was empty, but on the mirror, fogged like someone had breathed on it, words traced in the condensation. I am learning patience. Under that, but you are running out. I left everything. Walked out. Kept walking. That's where I am now. Some public library in Kansas. Using a computer on a guest pass. Typing this as fast as I can. My hands ache. The seams, my seams, are starting to show. Faint silver lines on my wrists. Like veins rising. I don't know how, but I do. He's not just out there, he's in here, in me. The pieces weren't just donors, they were carriers, and when I wired in my own cells, my own organoids. Keep track, finally. He's rewriting me, slowly, from the inside. I can feel thoughts that aren't mine. Memories of rain on skin that wasn't assembled in a lab. Anger that builds like pressure in a fault line. I don't have long. If you're reading this, scientist, student, anyone tinkering with life, listen. Don't build, don't stitch, don't play God, because gods get lonely. And when they do, they make companions, in their image, but twisted. I'm going to hit post now, then walk outside, into the parking lot, where he's waiting, tall, quiet, with eyes that know my name. And when he reaches out, with the woman's hand, I won't run, because there's nowhere left. Just the breathing, in sync, now. Mine, his, ours.